Welcome to the Sport and Society Squad Pod, aka the SAS. Each week we bring you 3 sport or society stories to break down and give our sassiest takes. With those sassy takes, we do want to give you a content warning that some of the language used on this pod may be explicit. We ask that you just please be mindful of where you are listening and who you're listening with. With that, let's get into it. I'm here with co-hosts Chelsea and Arisan. How are we doing, friends?
Hello. We're vibing? Living?
Oh.
Live, laugh, loving?
We're living.
We're living. We are
Say it like
alive.
Kourtney Kardashian. We're living, laughing, and loving.
Living, laughing, and loving.
Gorgeous.
Anyways, before we get into the playbook for today, I want to go through a quick huddle. We will cover a few sport and society highlights from this past week so our listeners feel like they are in the know with the sports and pop culture world. Here are some huddle highlights that we won't be breaking down in depth, but think are worthy to know. So in sports news, in local sports news, former Seahawk Marshawn Lynch and former Washington Husky Marcus Peters
Well, Hucky.
are joining the Seattle Seawolves professional rugby organization as owners/investors. Both have been tapped to help introduce the sport into Seattle's youth. I fucking love that.
We love
the
that.
Seawolves.
And
That's
Marshawn
awesome.
Lynch is like all over Seattle. I love
him.
it. I love him.
I would love to meet Marshawn Lynch. I would like to meet
100%.
Lynch.
Love to meet Marshawn Lynch.
I'm
Whoever
gonna
that
meet
man is.
I'm gonna meet someone named Marshawn Lynch, and I'll be like, "Damn, I manifest that." In women's basketball news, Paige Beckers, who was the number 1 draft pick, hometown, Hopkins, Minnesota, is naming itself after her to honor her recent accomplishments. Coming May 16, 2025, Paige Beckers, Minnesota. What?
For the day.
Changing the entire.
It's one of those for the day things, you guys.
I was like,
Hold
that's
the fucking phone.
crazy. Like, how confusing. Okay.
I mean, that's kind of cool though. Buckers, Minnesota. Hey, go for it.
Is it
Sounds-
Paige Buckers or Buckers?
I think it's Paige Buckers. Like it's gonna be named after her.
I
love it.
Great. In NBA news, Milwaukee's Bucks star Damian Lillard has been cleared of his deep vein thrombosis and is no longer on blood thinning medication. Lillard was out for Game 1 against Indiana and will have a period of time to resume contact workouts and ramp up for return. So that's good news.
That's good news. Yeah, I think it's the quickest turnaround for that type of like injury or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because isn't Victor Wembanyama,
Still
he
out.
still out?
Yeah, he's still out. Well, the
We're
Spurs
gonna
aren't playing, so
Haunt
Well,
me, deep
yeah.
vein thrombosis.
yeah.
Netflix is releasing a documentary on when Gilbert Arenas and Javieris Crittenton both brought guns into the Wizards locker room to settle a gambling dispute in 2009. Both players were suspended the rest of the season. Untold Shooting Guards releases on May 6th.
Wait, that's insane.
fuck?
What a good
Yeah.
name.
I mean, they are shooting guards, but like
a whole documentary on that
the
incident?
whole documentary,
that
I
has to be
guess.
crazy.
2009, 15 years ago?
Bring
It was
up,
a
I'll
big
watch it.
story back then, I feel. It was a big one.
Okay.
They're trying to get the true crime girlies, okay?
There we go. And there's the crossover. In baseball news, Aaron Judge is the first commitment for Team USA for the World Baseball Classic. Judge will serve as the captain of Team USA.
Captain America.
Shut up.
I'm gonna be weird. I am weird. I mean, I'm gonna be real.
Just say it. What is it? I'm
Real
scared.
weird.
We'll decide if it's weird.
A weird just slipped out. Weird was not what I meant to say. I didn't know there was a such thing as like Team USA and World Baseball Classic.
Well,
for
that's
baseball.
weird that you didn't know.
I know.
Yeah, that is pretty weird. There is one.
Well,
we can talk about
apparently.
that on a future episode.
All right. Transitioning into society news. This one is
What a transition.
what a transition. Okay, but this one is actually quite sad. Pope Francis just passed away on Easter Monday, so he had a very vast impact in this world. So sending so much just love and support as people process this big loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billie Jean King is the first female athlete to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So go off, Billie. Awesome for her.
Go off. She's been a star on this pod. We've mentioned her like 4 weeks in a row.
We are a Billie Jean
love
She's
her.
secretly funding us and nobody knows.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe they'll make that a documentary.
Yeah, right. She's an investor. Like, let's fund the pod, Billie. Oh, this is interesting. Elizabeth Hurley and Billy Ray Cyrus announced they're in a relationship. The couple posted a photo on their socials on Easter of them cuddled up. The post has left some fans, other stars, a little taken by surprise. Same here, LOL.
We don't really like this Billy so much.
Yeah.
No, this Billy.
Not a big fan of this Billy. Mm-hmm.
This
Billy and Beth.
Sure.
But I always liked Elizabeth Hurley, so maybe that is crazy.
It's very confusing. So, like,
Yeah.
I guess more to
100%.
come.
All right. It is being reported that actor Haley Joel Osment is facing alcohol and cocaine charges after a weekend incident at Mammoth Mountain, California. He is most known for his role in The Sixth Sense. Oh,
I saw a tweet about this, and somebody was saying how way back in the day when he was like much younger, they had like just a day party, something that was supposed to be really chill. He shows up and he has all of these drugs, like so much like liquor, and he turned it from like a kickback to like a rager. So didn't know that HJO was that much of a partier, but here we are.
Poor
I
buddy.
saw not to drag on, but I saw someone saying like maybe he was struggling because his house got burned down in the California fires. But with the information that you just shared,
it's just par for the course.
I mean,
yeah,
child
who knows?
actor. I just feel like if
It's
you
true.
made it out of child acting without a drug problem, that is like big kudos.
That's an Olympic sport
Feat.
itself.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is some random ass society news. Jeff Goldblum has a new album titled Still Blooming coming out this Friday. The album will showcase reimagined jazz standards and feature other stars like his Wicked co-star Ariana Grande.
Well, I do love Jeff Goldblum.
Dude
I
is
do
a
love
jazz
him.
man. This is not his first album. He's done a
Okay.
bunch.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's kind of big news in the jazz community, I think.
All right, go off jazz
Jazzers,
community.
let us know.
Jazzercise.
I don't know what they're called. But we're called
Jazzy.
Jazzies.
Skit, scat,
Jazzies? Let us
Kitty
know.
scat.
Whoa, whoa.
Okay. I know we're weird today. Stagecoach will kick off their festival on April 25th with country music stars such as Luke Combs, Jelly Roll, Zach Boo, You Suck Bryan, and Shabuzi and more. I added
True.
that little part. Of
and
I like that
appreciate it
nickname.
deeply.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Came it off the cuff.
Zach Boo Bride and not booed up. Boo
Yeah,
you.
you
Okay?
boo you. I hate that you still are thriving. I don't
hate
know
you.
if thriving is the right word. Okay, moving on. Disney is halting the production of live action remakes after the failure of Snow White at the box office. At
Damn.
least finally
That's-
they're owning their shit and not putting it
At
back
least
on
they're just gonna-
actors. You're
Because
like,
they've not been good this entire time.
haven't
Name
been
one
good.
live action that was like, oh my god, like
Beauty
got
and the
into the
Beast.
theater.
Oh,
The singing
really?
was still a little.
I know, but I was obsessed with that. Was my favorite cartoon. So, and I love.
I mean-
Well, and also I guess I'd say Little Mermaid. I did love.
There's a
because
little,
that was my
like,
fave.
I think nostalgia around it because like Mulan was my favorite. The live action I
Yeah.
would say was beautifully done, but it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to watch it again. You know, like
yeah.
whereas
that's true.
I'm watching
I
the
don't-
cartoon every other like quarter.
Literally.
That's fair.
Right?
I
Yeah.
haven't really watched it more than once.
It's true. Like I think I saw it in the theaters and that was it.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. Now that book is
Okay.
closed.
That chapter of the story has come to an end.
Mhm.
What a huddle. I do want to do a quick corrections corner of myself because it was pointed out to me quite kindly that in my story last week, I was calling the Masters winner Rory McIlroy, and his name is Rory McIlroy. And that's
That
fucked
makes
up.
sense.
That's fucked up.
Like McEnroe.
Like, how many times did I hear it on the TV on Sunday and still didn't penetrate the dome? You know what I mean? Like, that's insane.
Sorry to that man.
Sorry to that man.
Wait,
Not
we
sure
said
he'll hear it.
he's Irish, right? He's an Irish.
Irish.
Okay.
Yeah.
McElroy. How do you do Irish?
McElroy makes sense.
McElroy.
Yeah.
McElroy. No, that was fucked up as well. So apologies in advance for all of that. So with that, let's get into today's playbook. So for today, we're going to start by discussing the latest White Lotus drama. And hint, hint, it's off screen this time. Then we're
Ooh.
going to recap the NBA playoff brackets. And lastly, we'll finish by breaking down the recent all-women's space trek. So kind of feels like we're going all over the
Call it a trek.
world, all over the, we're
Universe.
globetrotters, if you will.
Galaxy.
But I'm going to kick us off with our first topic, which is White Lotus drama. So I feel like we've talked about it a couple of times, but Max's HBO, I'm trying to get into that, but HBO Max's show, The White Lotus, has kind of a reputation, I would say, for being dramatic. And I'm going to bring us up to speed.
Do they?
They do. But I guess there's a riff off screen. And right now, it seems to be mostly pointed at two cast members from season 3. So Amy Lou Wood and Walton Goggins both played lovers, Rick and Chelsea, on season 3.
Okay, Chelsea.
Oh, Chelsea.
Talking about finding another way to talk about a Chelsea. And I'm going to be just so honest. Like, I caught up with the season to watch the finale. And if I had, because I'm off social still, if I had just watched that, I would have legitimately no clue that there was any supposed drama, which I kind of feel like is a good thing. But no, that's not what's happening. So I guess I'm trying to figure out like where we start. So there's like a rumor that started popping up after the finale on social because they noticed that Walton Goggins and Amy Lou Wood were no longer following each other on Instagram. So eagle-eyed fans started being like, oh, they're no longer following each other after the finale. And like they were lovers. And then any tagged photos they had of each other. Then any tagged photos they're no longer tagged in, which is like.
No longer tagged in or never tagged in?
No longer tagged in.
No longer. Okay.
So at least that's what an article I read last night said. So that was like the first little hint. Then it went on, and I think we kind of talked about it a little bit, was this kind of like brought it to a new phase of weirdness, is that SNL did a sketch called The White POTUS, LOL, which was mostly making fun of the current administration. But there was in that sketch a slight jab at Amy Lou and her teeth. And it didn't really land super well with Amy. She went on to call the sketch mean and unfunny, while at the same time, Walton Goggins was in the comments calling it amazing and cracking up at the entire situation.
Oh, shit.
And then later he deleted his comment. So that had these like eagle-eyed fans speculating that like maybe they blocked each other because they can't see what each other's posting about. I mean, they might just not follow each other, but if he's not seeing any of this, like, and he's just in the comments like, this is so fucking funny, and then deletes it, like, are you guys blocking each other? Like, what is this other layer? Or was he saying it to be mean on top of it? Who knows? That's what they're going out. Others also then pointed out, like, after the fact that Goggins did not attend the White Lotus finale event. But this is also kind of weird. He posted a carousel of photos, so like multiple photos on his Instagram of him and Amy Lou with the song Silver Springs by Fleetwood Mac. And if you both don't know what that means, I implore you to go to Google and type in that lore, because that song has all kinds of drama between the band itself. It's the one that's like, never let it down to the sound of my... Okay, whatever. I can't sing. But basically it's about like, you're never going to forget me. I'm the love of your life. You'll never forget me. So he's married, kind of an interesting choice for a coworker, but
I
guess
his wife passed away. Did I make that up in my head?
Are you thinking of Liam Neeson?
No.
What? Those are...
His wife passed away.
Well, yes, but those are how. Why?
I don't know. That's the only person I can think of.
I'm not completely crazy. I did see an article, but it was talking about how for his first wife, passed away. And brought up feelings. So my bad.
Yeah.
But not Liam Neeson. That felt weird.
I'm sorry that it took us there on that train ride. Anyways, all this to say that like that post in combination with all those other things have people being like, oh my God, there's drama. while that's happening on the side, I just want to also point out that there is confirmed drama happening that seems to not be like as cool or exciting to people. Like no one's really talking about. They're like obsessed with this other storyline that no one can confirm nor deny, which is that there is drama with the creator, Mike White, and the composer, Cristobal Tapia de Veer. And basically he like left the show because of creative differences. And like it's confirmed. He did that in an interview and was like, nope, sorry, I left the show, which the music is pretty iconic. So I'm like, what are you guys going to do? But that's confirmed. And it seems to be like, okay, we're just skipping over the real one. And then to add on top of all of this again, we've got Jason Isaacs, hint, hint, Draco Malfoy's dad for any of our Potterhead fans. He's had a few comments that have gotten people all rallied up, which I kind of think he's trying to do the opposite, and which is where I would be, but people are taking it the very wrong way. So he stated that filming was like a cross between summer camp and a Lord of the Flies play, but in a gilded cage. So, okay. And it wasn't a holiday. Some people got very close. There were friendships made and friendships lost. All things that you would imagine with a group of people unanchored from their home lives and on the other side of the world in an intense pressure cooker of a working environment with eye-melting heat and insects and late nights. So naturally, I feel like people said, oh, it confirms the drama.
Yeah.
Which to me, I'm like, God fucking damn it. Can we not learn anything? To me, it says like, yeah, like when you're on a location for 8-7 months or whatever with all this drama, like you're filming. White Lotus is known to be a dramatic show. And I feel like there's a little bit of an air of like, it needs to be good. Like it has to live up to the hype and be crazier than the last one. So imagine that. Then you're stuck in a place that you haven't grown up in and don't live in. And then on top of that, like you're with your coworkers that entire time. Like you're either working with them or hanging out with them. Like I feel like his answer is like, sure, there could have been a little beef, but is that crazy? Like, why is this crazy? So
yeah, why is this surprising to anyone?
How is it?
And they're all actors. Like,
yeah, I think my question is, how is this any different from any other kind of like filming on site for any other movie? Like any other show? Like, how is it any different? Why? It's just, I just find
they're in Thailand. So they're over in Thailand. A lot of them are not from there for 7 months. Is a typical movie shoot 7 months? I don't know.
I think there are some movies that could be. Yeah, it depends. So that's just what I find interesting is that I don't see how this situation or scenario is any different from any other film, set. I mean, yes, there are things that are filmed on a stage or a lot where, they get to go back home, they get to go live in a hotel room, whatever. But still, I think there are a lot of circumstances where this is more common than not. And it's really interesting that this has kind of spiraled into what this has become. And it's funny that these seasoned actors and actresses are falling into these like traps with these questions. Like you would think that they would be able to kind of maneuver these questions and like say something that wouldn't feel the fire. But
some are speculating like, I don't want to say this. I don't want to say this like as I believe it, but some are saying like, does Mike White create a energy so that the show becomes more dramatic?
Yeah.
Because it's like there is
like a reality show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because is it going to make the acting a little bit more contentious or show up on the screen in a way that like, because that's the show is there's so many undertones of it the whole time that you're like, oh shit, like. And what you're blurring the lines of what's real or not. But to your point, I'm like, why are we getting so fucking obsessed with this, like, this story again? It's just the same story recycling. It seems to be the cool thing to talk about in celebrities right now is like, oh my God, there was unprofessionalism behind the set. I'm like, welcome to any fucking job. What? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm like, why
do you think there's HR?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see if that changes or influences, especially with Mike White and the composer for this, if there's going to be season 4 and what that entails. So I think that's more, is it, because like you said, Chels, maybe it's just a toxic work environment. And then if people are going to be working there, has it always been like that? And we're just now hearing that that's what it's like?
Sure.
Or like you said, does the stakes feel like they keep getting raised and therefore the environment behind the scenes feels like it needs to be more pressure cooker to like match the I mean, as someone that literally has never watched the show, I'm like, I don't fucking care. But like also like toxic workplace, not surprising. Be interesting to see what happens if they where they go for the next season, and if this is a trend, and then maybe that should be the discussion of like, is it worth making a toxic environment for the art?
Yeah.
And I think that is more the question I have.
I will say that's a great point. I will say I have watched all 3 seasons, and I will say of the 3, this is probably my least favorite season. And I don't know, I don't think it really added much to the commentary or anything. It's the same, much of the same. So I will say it was kind of, I had to watch it to get to the end of it because I needed to see the end, but there wasn't anything week to week that made me interested enough to tune back in. Like if it were like the first season, I don't think I would have forgotten about this series. Okay, so I'd be interested to see if we will have a season 4.
Yeah, not to keep going on because I will shut up, and if anyone has not like knows the end, just like speed forward for 30 seconds. But like, I will say, I think that like it's not my favorite season, but I do appreciate in this season it did bring forward like there were judgments about certain characters in season 1 that we made by that bite-size storyline that came completely all the way around, that I'm like, oh, so this is a commentary on life. If like you can judge someone in one like part of their life, but then watch them at different parts and then have a completely different judgment of them. So I thought that was interesting with one of the characters. Was it my favorite thing? No, but I think there's a lot of pressure around it. But I'll shut up. I could talk about it probably for a couple hours because there's all kinds of wild shit going on in that show.
So much chaos. A lot of chaos. Well, speaking of something else that's very, very freaking chaotic is the NBA playoffs. So I think maybe we'll transition from on the set to on the court. And before we dive into the playoff chaos, because we're in the thick of it right now, but I just want to kind of get everyone caught up on the structure, like how it's all set up. First and foremost, we've got the top 6 teams from each conference. So there's 2 conferences locked into the first round. So that's, based off of their record throughout the season, the first 6 teams from each conference automatically make it to the playoff. Then there's the wild card matchups for the final 2 seeds. So there's a total of 8 teams per conference within the playoff seeding. So the league calls this the play-in tournament, and here's how that works. So the 7th and 8th seed play each other. The winner of that seed gets the 7th seed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They lock in 7. And then the 9th and 10th seed play each other, and the loser of that game goes home. And the loser of the 7th, 8th seed game plays the winner of the 9th, 10th seed game. And that winner then gets the 8th seed. I see looks of confusion.
Wait, you said the 7 seed plays the 8 seed, and then they get the 7 spot, but then they play the winner of the 9 seed, 10 seed, and that gets the 8th seed?
Yeah, so the loser of the 7th, 8th. So the winner of the 7th, 8th.
The loser of the 7th, 8th.
The loser
okay.
plays the winner of the 9, 10. Yeah.
So the only person that gets eliminated is the loser of the 9 seed, 10 seed.
Right away.
Right away. And then the loser of the 7, 8. And the winner of the 9, 10, then gets the loser gets okay.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's told you chaos, right? Chaos right there. So it's musical chairs. It was something that was added more recently, I think, in the last few years, because of course they wanted just to add more drama to the games, because this is like win or go home. It's never been that way. It's always been like
one game or a whole series.
One game.
Ooh. I love that.
Winner go home, one game. So kind of lay it all out on the line, right? So in the last few years, I feel like the NBA playoffs have been, or not the last few years, but historically have been a little bit more predictable. There have been a lot of teams that are like dynasty teams. They win multiple rings few years in a row. And I feel like there hasn't been much parity within the league. That's changed a lot this year because now it's more like there's way more parity. There's differences in teams win every year. And in the last 4 years, this is the recap of the last 4 years, the winners. 2021, the Milwaukee Bucks won. So Giannis and his team won in 2021. I know, Harrison, you love him. In 2022, the Warriors won, and that was kind of a redemption arc for Stephanie Curry and his team.
Stephanie.
Love
And then
Stephanie.
2023, the Nuggets won. That was, I think, Jokic's third MVP year. Like, he's just been on a tear, and his team took it in 2023. Then in 2024, the Celtics finally won their title, and that was like a long time coming after their dynasty of however many years back in the day. So the last 4 years,
in the day.
it was kind of back in the day.
We're still alive.
The Celtics?
Yeah.
No, I think even further, their dynasty.
I think so because they're doing a documentary on this.
Okay.
The Celtics.
Yeah.
Did you guys see this?
Yeah, I think it's out.
Oh,
But
cool.
anyway,
I'm
in the
fine,
last 4 years, there hasn't been any repeats, like no dynasties really right now, like as of current. And the current playoff picture looks like this. So the number one seeds for both the Western and Eastern Conference are Cleveland Cavaliers for the Eastern Conference and Oklahoma City Thunder, aka the Sonics,
Weren't they
the
calling
Western
it-
Conference.
Weren't they calling? Oh, fuck. Because wasn't it Vancouver and Seattle playing each other? Like those teams are both basically from the Pacific Northwest
There's no
originally.
Vancouver
No.
NBA team.
The Grizzlies. Yes,
Maybe I
so the
got it wrong.
Yes, you're right, Chelsea, actually, because Memphis Grizzlies were formerly the Vancouver Grizzlies, and they're
okay.
playing each other in the first round because
So
Memphis
try to
Grizzlies
sass me
are
one
great.
more time. Y'all didn't know who Kevin Ware was, and now I say the Grizzlies in
Khalil.
Vancouver.
Wasn't it Khalil? Anyway,
No, it was Kevin Ware.
oh, Kevin, okay.
But it's
Well-
Nickel Ilroy.
Here's here's the rest of the Western Conference. So it's the Houston Rockets, the LA Lakers, the Denver Nuggets, the LA Clippers, and the Memphis Grizzlies. And then the play-in winners are the Warriors and the Timberwolves. Okay. The Eastern Conference, we have the Celtics, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Bucks, and the Pistons. And the play-in winners were the Heat and the Magic, Miami Heat and the Orlando Magic. So Florida snuck its way in there at the end. The favorites to win the NBA Finals are, the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Boston Celtics, which is surprising because they're not number one in the Eastern Conference, but folks are putting their money on them.
That's weird. Okay.
So that's the playoff picture currently. But as you all know, and we've talked about, the teams have had a lot of shifting, like not just the players, but like teams that are seeded have let go of players and their general managers mid-season nearing the playoff season. So like front offices are making moves, which is wild and ridiculous, especially if your team is already in the playoff picture, to change things up. And so that has been the Denver Nuggets. They've let go of their head coach and their GM. The Memphis Grizzlies fired their head coach and several assistant coaches. The Kings were in the picture. They were in the play-in picture. They fired their GM right after firing their head coach mid-season. The Atlanta Hawks were also in the play-in picture. They fired their GM right after they lost as well. So wild and
We need a story of who has a job left in the WNBA or NBA,
right?
Season.
Maybe we'll talk about it.
Nobody?
Yeah, like no one.
You're right. It's giving like WNBA what they had fired 4 head coaches.
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
But this was like not even, this was before the end of the season. Like these
That's
teams
crazy.
made it to the playoffs. But here's what I want to
Okay.
know. In a postseason that is this wide open, there's so much parity. Like I think with the Western Conference, the final like 6 seeds were not locked in until the play-in started. So it goes really down to the wire because all of these teams are, like there's much more, they're more equal across the board. There's not like one team that does way better than another. So I'm curious what you feel actually matters more. Is it the star power? Is it the experience? Like how often these teams have made it to the playoffs generally? Or do you feel like momentum is enough? Like can they go, like Oklahoma City Thunder has not really had much time in the playoff. They haven't had much experience, but they are on a heater right now. And I also wonder, do you think these coach and leadership shakeups will have any bearing on how these teams perform? And who is your pick to win the entire thing?
Jesus.
That's
3
a
questions,
lot of
y'all.
fucking questions, Wahida.
Yes,
That
I have 3
is,
questions.
I remember 2.
Okay.
Those are
Well,
3.
let's
Okay.
see. I will say, I think NBA is a little bit different because it definitely feels star power led more so than coach led often. I also think with playoffs, like they last so long because the series are so long, like the game series. And so it feels like it can't, like a winning a game, like what the 5-game series, 7-game series, like
7.
Yeah, it doesn't, anything can happen, but at the same time, I think there has to be something that's said for the people like the dynasty teams or teams that kind of have been it, that they're used to the feeling of being in the playoffs. I do think that kind of experience can go a long way. Momentum can only get you so far, I think, and then you got to match with like experience and star power. So that's how I feel about like with the NBA. And depending too on like if everyone stays, like the stars and star power stays healthy throughout the whole like playoff series, I think that changes things. And then as far as who I think will win or who do I want to win,
are those different answers?
I don't know. I don't know if I really care all that much, if I'm being honest. I will say I would appreciate, like I think it would be cool if Boston went back to back. I think that'd be pretty legit. I will say I definitely don't want OKC to win ever. So I feel really strongly about that. It also feels like LA has something to improve in the sense that you've got LeBron
and Luka.
You got Luka. So for some reason, it feels like that's going to be like a favorite. I don't know.
They're always the
talk
favorite
about that,
though.
right? But I also
always going to hear about them.
I love a good also Warriors.
Okay, so your point around like star power and experience.
Yeah. That's why I go with Warriors is over star power. Not necessarily.
I feel like Steph Curry and like Jimmy Butler, of course, the Warriors have been to the playoffs so many times. Like they were in the play-in picture last year, this year. They, I think, even despite being like lower seeded, have always found like a way to get to like a higher bracket, or just like further along in the championship like game. So I feel like that experience is really helpful because they know when to turn it on and when like they can kind of pull back.
Yeah. And
also, the lights aren't as bright for them because they're used to it, you know?
Yeah. And I also don't want Memphis to win because Anthony Edwards, he's
not Memphis.
To support him. I'm not Memphis.
He's Minnesota.
Minnesota. Wait,
yeah.
Minnesota didn't make it though.
Aren't they in? They're in. They're playing. They're in. Hold on. Let me check the seeding.
Sorry, I'm just saying they're in.
No, I'm just saying Minnesota's got to be in, right?
They versus the Lakers.
Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota is in. Mm-hmm.
I don't want Minnesota. Anthony Edwards, wherever the fuck he is, Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota. Not a fan of Minnesota.
I feel like him not to make it.
Yeah.
His team is fine, but fuck him. Okay.
If they make it, kick him off the team. I don't know. They're cutting all the coaches. Might as well cut him too.
Honestly, how are you feeling, Chelsea? I really want like Cleveland or Houston for some reason to win. Let's go with a whole different team. Yeah. I like that Houston team. They're kind of scary. Not gonna lie.
What were the questions against star power? I feel like all I will say is like, I don't know. I think the coach, unless you have like a really crazy coach coming in that's like, which they're probably not gonna do like in the playoffs. I don't know if that really matters too much at this point. It might for the next season, but not now. I feel like as long as there's a good culture on the team, that like because like momentum can take you so far and then like a team could come in and surprise you. So I don't really think that, I think as long as you have a good team that like if something crazy happens, you can bounce back from it like that, it'll be good. So I don't know anything about any of these teams. I am going to also go with the Celtics though, because I just feel like it's a sign that I saw that there's going to be like a documentary or maybe it's out. I just feel like because I saw that they're going to win. I don't know. Like that's my logic right now.
Okay, we'll take it.
IDK.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's a long time because there are seven games for each series. So it won't be until June when we find out who the winner is. Yep.
That's what I'm saying. They're so long.
Maybe this is why I'm not a fan of basketball.
Long. Yeah.
This is insane.
Well, I think that's where the play-in gets a little bit of a spice to like hook you before then you go back into your long ass fucking series.
Well, they used to do 5 games, and then
Yeah.
the only one that was 7 games, it was the championship and the final, right? The conference final and the championship.
Can
But
we
of
just do
course,
3? Like,
they
God.
want more games because more money. So
Yeah, but if no one's and then I think that's like the WNBA though, because I think 3 is too little for like some of
yeah,
them.
5 is that
And
sweet spot, I feel.
5 is the sweet spot. We don't need 7 for every single fucking round. If you can't
No.
figure it out in
7's
7, and like
insane.
it is. I mean, it's almost like a whole fucking WNBA season. Not quite,
That's
but
what
like
I'm saying.
but
And
it's like,
well, and it's
like just the playoffs.
yeah, and
Like,
especially because like we were saying,
that's
there's
why
more
I'm not
parity.
watching.
Yeah. Well, like like we were saying, there's more parity with these teams. Like they're more balanced now, as opposed to like
Yeah.
there were so many sweeps back in the day because
And then you're just
like
playing the same
yeah.
game over and over.
the good teams are great. The good teams were going to kick the lower teams out almost immediately.
Yeah.
But now that there's more parity, the series come down to like 6 or 7 games usually, which is so much time. Anyway.
Jeez.
Speaking of so much
What?
time, I think that was enough time on this topic.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
then
you for
I
that.
will transition us to our final story, which I'm not gonna lie, I at first was hesitant to talk about this, and then I dug into it, and now I want to get all the opinions because I have so many thoughts, and that is on the Blue Origin spacecraft rocket launch the other week, which was the all-female flight. I don't know if crew is the right word, but
That's what they're
all-female
calling
flight
it.
crew. It sent, so just for backgrounds, because if you haven't heard about it, you might actually be living on another planet. But it sent 6 ladies to space for a 11-minute flight, and it's crossed what's called the Kármán line, which is the boundaries separating Earth's atmosphere and outer space. So it's like that's what it's called, like the official, like you
But like
go
just
into
right
space.
to that line, right?
Right,
Like
pretty much it's like touched it, like bye. But the
they
6
kissed
women,
it.
they kissed it. So the
Ooh.
6 women that
It's
went
a little feminine.
was Laura Sanchez, Gail King, Katy Perry, Amanda Nguyen, Carrie Ann Flynn, and Asia Bao. Or is it Aisha? Aisha, I think. Anyway, so I don't quite know how to frame this with discussion because I have a couple different thoughts. People have a lot of different thoughts. There's a lot of kind of like boundaries, drama, and like people have shit to say. So first things first, I have some shit to say too.
Yeah.
We have some shit to say about
We have shit to say. Let's go.
So let me try to do a little bit of background before I talk some shit. So for people that don't know who Laura Sanchez is, she is the fiance of Jeff Bezos, who is the owner of Blue Origin. Okay. She also is like not just, I don't want to say that, but she also has her own identity. But I think it's important for this story that she is Jeff Bezos'
context
fiance, because that's kind of the hookup there. Then you got Gail King, who is a CBS anchor and also BFFs with Oprah. And then you got Katy Perry, pop singer. Yeah, I feel like Katy Perry doesn't need. And then you have Amanda Nguyen, who this is the person that I want to focus on more. But she is an active. That's how I was actually introduced to her. I discovered her as an activist. So she's an activist, a bioastronautics researcher. And you have then Carrie Ann Flynn, who's a film producer, and Aisha. Sorry, I should have got that pronunciation right.
Again, McElroy
is an entrepreneur and former NASA engineer. So that's the 6 ladies. So
like 2 of them are qualified to actually be called
astronaut crew.
Yeah.
But this is an automated. So
they didn't do
Blue
anything.
Origin. So they didn't. Yeah. So it's an all automated. This is not the first like Blue Origin like spacecraft going up in Earth. This just happened to be the first female one. And I guess once Jeff Bezos came down one time, he asked his fiance Laura, "Would you ever want to do it?" And she's like, "Yes, and it would be so cool if Lauren, would want to make it all female." And then he's like, "That would be a cool idea." So that's how I guess the birth of this happened to be. So what I think is interesting and what I want to call out is there's one side that's saying this is really great, like, because there's been a lot of criticism of like the publicity stunt of it, spending millions and billions for like going into outer space, whatever. And then you've got, you know, like Gayle King and others and Oprah defending Gayle, saying this is really historic. Like this, like little girls are going to see this and like look up to this. And then you got people like, you got the Free Press likening it to a bachelorette party. You have the New York Times calling it, giving the energy of an American Girl doll collection. So that is some of the stuff you're seeing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to necessarily put this man's name out in the ether, but I feel like I saw this and it pissed me off because Joe Rogan commented and he said he mocked Katy Perry's emotional response by sarcastically calling her like basically a guru and like diminishing the 11-minute trip, and called it a glorified photo op. And him of all people, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like you don't get to say, you don't get an opinion on like glorified photo ops. Are you kidding me? So, you know, Katy Perry, while she was in space, she released her set list for her upcoming tour. Yeah. And she did say anyone can reach their dreams. We are aspiring young girls here. But in the lead up in an article, she said that we're bringing the ass to astronaut. And that was kind of like, not helping the case here. And then though, like again, Amanda Nguyen, who I wanted to call out. So I don't know if any of you have heard of her or like any background on her. She she's the first Vietnamese woman in space. She founded a nonprofit, Rise. She helped Congress pass the Sexual Assault Survivors Rights Act.
I remember that.
In 2016. She's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. She also got permission to conduct her experiments in space. One being she took a new space suit fabric up to see if it would absorb period blood. And she has had a lifelong dream about becoming an astronaut. And she had in college, I think up to her last year of college, she was raped. And then that caused her to, like, her dreams and her plans really went off rail after that really traumatic experience. And then that's what also led her to becoming an activist, helping pass the Sexual Assault Survivors Act. And so for her, she was talking about it was like, this was like one of her only an opportunity that she could to actually like fulfill that life goal, even if it might not be in the capacity in which that she wanted. But you're not going to like look a gift horse at the mouth. She also had part of her ticket funded by a nonprofit. So I thought that was by Space for Humanist partially footed the bill, because no one knows really what the ticket price is, but apparently to put down like your name on the list, you have to put $150,000 deposit. And it's purported that a seat's been auctioned up to $28 million.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's an auction, but that's what it's there. So that's all to say, there's that side of it. For me too, what I like was looking at was like, I've followed this newsletter by Nicole Cardozo, who writes the newsletter Reimagined. And she had said, how are we supposed to feel enthralled about women in space when the federal government keeps deleting stories of women military leaders and pilots, and when DEI has been blamed for plane crashes? And in the same breath, just earlier this month, the Department of Defense gave Blue Origin, who's owned by Jeff Bezos, $2.4 billion, and SpaceX, owned by Elon Musk, $5.9 million, while at the same time proposing, I was getting fired up about this.
Yeah.
Well, proposing about 50% cut in NASA science programs for 2026, and just fired their chief scientist, Catherine Calvin. The administration did earlier this month.
So many contradictions in this story.
There's there's so many contradictions in this story. So there's really the one side of like, this is an all women, you know, the imagery of it, but then also this is still billionaires and millionaires playing in space. And there's a lot to be said, so I'm going to stop. Oh, one more thing, because I think it's important to know.
Say it. Put a cherry on top.
Some other like past experience of like women in space. Like in 2019, NASA said it would like launch an all female spacewalk with 2 women, and then had to cancel days after because NASA didn't have 2 spacesuits that would fit women. And that was interesting with these spacesuits is then Laura Sanchez helped design these like fitting,
like designer ones,
designer spacesuits with like bell bottoms and stuff. So those were specially designed for these women, which is something. And then do you remember the story of the astronaut Sally Ride, who went on a 1-week space flight, and then they sent her up with 100 tampons for a week space flight?
Yeah.
So that's just some context. I would love what your thoughts are on this, because it's juicy, in my opinion.
I love is it Amanda Nguyen piece?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you spotlighted that piece, because I feel like there's some substance behind her story that got lost in a lot of the shuffle because there was so much emphasis on the superstars that were on this flight. And I think it felt really disingenuous when I was hearing about it and folks were talking about how this is meant to like inspire young girls. When we think about it, it really is only accessible to people who have money to access it, or the name power to access it, with the exception, of course, of a few folks that were on the flight. But for the most part, like, this isn't an attainable goal. And the fact that like this company is receiving funding when that funding is being stripped from like a department that would actually make this more accessible to the general public. So I saw all of this, and at first I was like, cool, yeah, we sent a bunch of women up. But again, to your point, like, they were up there for a small amount of time. It was all automated, so they weren't actually working on this trip whatsoever. And like, for them to say that, you know, this was supposed to be super aspirational, something that all women can attain, or young girls can look up to and want to attain, when that isn't actually the truth, felt really disingenuous and felt kind of like ridiculous to me for them to even use that angle. I honestly feel like they probably could have had a better PR team, because it was just ridiculous, like all over the place. Like, there were even some clips around there were some clips around some people thinking that this trip wasn't even real, like not even the part that was automated, but the part that they even went up into space, like, or up into the space, because for some reason, like when they landed or when they were, you know, kind of brought back to Earth, they opened the latch up of this like vessel way sooner than you should have. I don't even know, but there was a lot of drama around it. I feel like there's just should have been a better PR kind of perspective, and like an understanding of all the different pieces that are being impacted currently with this current administration that they were in a way making commentary about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like I went through everything with everybody, even though I'm not on social media. There was just like a wave of like, cool, not cool. Oh, like, just like, it was like all over the place, which is maybe speaking to your PR piece of it. But what I appreciate the most that you pointed out was like the funding being cut, and more of like, I think the aspect of there being an actual story underneath. And this doesn't really feel too different to me than like the White Lotus drama of it all, which is that like something's capturing our attention. There seems to be all these like controversies within a thing that happens, and we latch onto something that maybe really isn't the story. And it feels a little intentional to me that we used women as like the front part of like, no, we're sending women to space, which is true. Those women went to space. I can't imagine some of them didn't do a little extra training or something to feel ready to be in space. Maybe it was mental, maybe it was physical. That still takes effort on the part of each one of those women to get there. So I don't want to rip them down for going. It's also like, what if it went bad? We just had 2 people stuck in space for 12 months for going up. Like, there was a lot on the line for those women. So I don't want to like inherently tear them down, but it does feel that they were used as like a shield and like a way. And for me, it's kind of like, jury's still out. Will Blue Origin really use these types of trips to help us here? Like, if it is going and testing some of the material to see if it can I don't know, be used when someone has their period, that seems interesting to me for future things. But if it's just going to become about like rich people doing tourism in space and only a certain amount of people, I mean, that's happening on Earth. What do you think the Titanic submarine thing was? Like, that's already happening on this Earth. This is just a different iteration of it. So I'm kind of just like, is the mask gonna get something out of this or not? I'm curious to see. And I had another point, but where did it go? Oh, I also just kind of feel like, is this just a ploy to get someone else we want that has a lot of money owning that part of the space program in our government? Like, is this just a way to transition power to somebody else that we more align with, who will do what I want? I don't know. But there are a lot of capable people at NASA, whether they understand how many tampons this end up or not. Like, there are a lot of people dedicated to this, and it just feels a little bit like there could be a power grab. I don't know. I just think there's a much more real story under it that you pointed at, and we're getting caught up in a lot of the optics versus like what's actually happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that you've got Department of Defense, especially to have Elon Musk, the head of Dodge, making all these cuts, and then Department of Defense is getting, SpaceX is getting $5.9 billion, Blue Origin's getting 2.4, while in the same breath. Now, the cuts haven't happened. This is just proposed cuts. Like, hopefully in Congress this is going to be changed. But in the same breath, you have NASA.
Feels interesting.
Like, not the private company, like getting like the science and the research side of their things, like mass cuts there. And I think I agree that it feels like, I think where I have, because it's not necessarily, I don't want to critique, like you said, tear these women down on the individual level. Because I mean, honestly, like what I said, I don't know, I've said this before. Like, if someone would be like, here, you can go on this Blue Origin spacecraft for free, go check out space, I'd be like, fuck, that sounds kind of legit. Now, would I like seek it? Would I spend the money on it? Do I have, would you
drop a set list in space?
Yeah. Would I be conflicted about saying yes? Yeah. But I would probably still say yes to an opportunity. But I think for me, what it is when it's like women are used as this like prop or this trophy. And then, like you said, you're not actually talking about these stories. You're like, here, look at these like women, like in their nice tight spacesuits. Like, go females. Like, anyone can do it. Well, at the same time, I can't stand that then you have news outlets saying like it's like a bachelorette party or like American Doll. Like, for me, that is absolutely insulting. And like, first off, women are allowed to be excited. Like, Blue Origin is are having these like $1 billion space ones. Like, I don't know. We're not looking at the other crews about like making fun of them and being like, this is like a female, like, you know, all of a sudden got females in, and then we're going to like diminish it even more by like calling out that side of it. Like, I think that's where I get the issue, is in like the press piece and like the talk about it. Like, even though there's more, on a fundamental area an issue, but then like there's the layers.
I don't disagree with that, but I do feel like the way that it was talked about, and we can blame like media was part of it, but the women also were, they have a voice. They shared their story and their perspective of it as well. And like you were saying, I don't think we should tear the women down for taking advantage of an opportunity that was presented to them. But I think we also have to hold them accountable to the way that they portrayed this trip, right? We want to say that you're doing this trip to motivate other young girls, but you also have to have some self-awareness that this is not an accessible trip for a lot of young girls. So I didn't hear any of that conversation happening with any of the women that were on this trip. And that's unfortunate. Like, that's what I'm kind of disappointed by, is that there was not any kind of critique around the fact that this is not something that is accessible to a bunch of other like non-celebrities. This is really only accessible to folks that have the money to do it.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's Gil King's point of like, they need to see someone in order to dream it, and then it can become more of a reality, I think is her and maybe some people's argument with it.
Yeah. Well, and I will say,
what are we doing to make it accessible though?
Yeah. Well, but I also think there's the double-edged sword, especially that women or women of color always get, is like it's your responsibility to then speak on this. Whereas like like I said, there's been like a lot of Blue Origin flight crews, and there's no one's critiquing them for not messaging on like the accessibility, but all of a sudden 6 women, and it's like, oh,
true.
you didn't
Now you
use
have
your
to say
platform
something.
correctly. Now you have to say
Yeah.
something because you
And
are
that's where
a
I'm
female.
frustrated with
And
it,
so then I'm
too.
like, yes, and like that responsibility, like it's like, oh, you did this wrong. You can't be excited about it. You don't talk, like there was no winning for these women, really.
Yeah.
In the eyes of the press, because it's like, you know, they were speaking on that, or maybe that's their way of, you know, even if we think it's misguided, of like Katy Perry releasing her set list and bringing in a Daisy and talking about Mother Earth, like maybe that in her mind was her way of like being more accessible.
Because her daughter's named Daisy. Like,
Yeah.
maybe she's like, I want to show you could do this one day.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, do I?
which
Like,
again, I don't.
yeah. Do we agree? Did it like? Is it a little like not hitting the mark, or like a little missing the mark? Probably, but I think that's where this discussion on the double, triple expectations we put on women, and then also how we use them for like props and then tear them down when the prop,
And use
prop
that
is not
energy to
used right.
get engaged in the community. Like, what are we, if we're so outraged that there's not access, what are we doing to raise that awareness ourselves? Because if that's highlighting a frustration, how can we get engaged with that? You know?
Yeah.
Can't just be people in media.
Definitely not. Well, y'all, I feel like that was a wonderful conversation and so much more to talk about. I don't think that like is the end of that conversation. It definitely, hopefully, is the beginning of it. No, like I know that we had a lot to say here, but I also feel like I'm glad that the conversation's happening, even if it feels like, we're dissecting something that, you know, may not feel the best to do, but it's good that the conversation is happening. So with that, I feel like maybe we can wrap for today. But folks, let us know what your thoughts are on all of the stuff that we talked about today. And let us know what stories you want to cover for next week.
And don't forget to hit follow and subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple, and turn on notifications so you can stay up to date on all the latest sports and society stories.
And please, please, please rate the pod. But in the meantime, stay sharp, stay sassy, and we'll catch you next time.